Hi, I'm that Astro chap, and in this video I'm going to show you my really easy Nebula workflow in PixInsight. In this image I've got the Eastern Veil Nebula, which you can see has a really strong green hue. The first thing I'm going to do is use a dynamic background extraction to help remove that and any gradients. So I start by clicking on the image and then generating some samples with a tolerance of 1. And I'll just use the defaults for this, and it puts a load of boxes onto the image. The idea here is to move the boxes and adjust them ever so slightly so that none of them fall on top of stars or any other bright elements of the picture, whether it's the nebula or otherwise. So I'll go through and adjust all of these. Okay, so this is looking pretty good now. We've got pretty decent coverage across the board. We could add some more and some extra gaps if we think there's any, but overall this looks pretty decent. So what we can do is we can select the correction mode, and we'll do this as a subtraction to start with, and we can just replace the target image directly, but we'll also take a copy of it so that we can rerun it again later on in division mode. So this will remove the green hue, and if we screen this, there we go, we can see the green, and then if we rerun this we can see the improved image. So we've lost the green hue that was there to start with, but there's still a little bit of a gradient that we can knock out using the background extraction tool that we saved. So if we switch this to division and just rerun it, and we'll be able to see the gradient that it's picked up. There we go. So that background gradient's been removed, so we can get rid of that. And we're done with this now, so we can close it, and the same with this process 1, we can delete that. And we're in a pretty good place. So there's still more work to be done, but it's heading in the right direction. So the next step is we basically want to do color calibration. So I normally run the SCNR tool, and this will just remove the green hue, which still exists, but it's much less prominent than it was. And you can just run that with the defaults. And then the next thing I do is the PhotmetricColorCalibration. And this one I think is actually a really useful and powerful tool. And it will correct the image colors a little bit further than we've already done, based on existing data that's been recorded. So this takes a little while to run, but we'll let this run through. And it generates some graphs. There we go, we don't need these, we can just close them. But this was successful. And you can see there is a subtle change, but it has improved the picture. It's just kind of brought the colors in line. The background looks kind of a little bit more black and more in keeping. And the colors of the nebula look a little bit improved too. So next thing I do is the soft stretch. So rather than having to use the screen transfer function every time, we can just run this. And this is part of the easy processing suite. And that's it. There's not much to that one. That's pretty quick and easy to do. And this image is getting there. It's looking pretty decent. There's still more work to be done, and there's some detail we can pull out. There's a lot of noise. But the first thing we'll do is some deconvolution. So we'll use the BlurXTerminator. And this is a really powerful tool. It's produced by RC Astro. And it is paid for, but it's worth every penny in my opinion, and the level of clarity it can bring out in an image is pretty spectacular. So we can just run this, and this will definitely take a little while to go through. And there we are. Okay, so that's improved the picture no end, like the amount of detail that's been pulled out there. We see the before and after. It's shrunk down the stars a little, and it's really cleared up some of the detail in that nebula. It's a pretty good improvement, I think. So the next thing to do is just have a look at some of the noise reduction. So RC Astro also has another tool, again paid for, but I think it's worth it, which is called NoiseXTerminator. And I can't remember if these are factory defaults, but these values seem to work pretty well. So I'll just run this directly on here, and this will do a significant amount of noise reduction. It's a bit faster as well. There we go, so that's really cleaned things up. It's a much smoother image. Yeah, that's looking a lot better. We can see the before and after. So it's quite grainy. And that's after we've run the NoiseXTerminator. Cool, okay, we're getting there. So then the next things that I tend to look at are processing the nebula independent of the stars. So in order to do that, I run the StarNet 2, which was the successor of StarNet++, and I generate the star mask, and it will split the image into two. So you've got the one image with the nebula in isolation, and then one of the stars. And then we can process them independently in terms of curve transformations and other things. So I'll let this run through. This will take a little while, and then we can go on to the next steps. Okay, so that's done now. So we've got our two images. So the stars, or the star mask, we can just move out of the way for now, and we'll come back to that later. We don't want to close it completely, we want to hold on to it. And then the other piece is the nebula, which is the bit that we're going to work on for now. So what we want to do is try and kind of just bring out the details in the nebula and the colors or the saturation, and also just adjust the contrast so that the background is a little darker and the highlights are a bit brighter. So to do that, what we can do is use the CurvesTransformation tool, and it should make quite a big difference to this image. So to start with, we will bring up the preview, the live preview, and just reset everything. And then what we want is that subtle S-shaped curve, which will drop the black point down a little bit, but maintain the highlights. And I don't want to raise the highlights up too much because I don't want it to be completely blown out. So I think little and often is better. So making multiple transformations and just checking it each time. And this is looking better. I think we can take it a little bit further. Don't want to overdo it, so we'll just push that up ever so slightly. And that looks pretty decent. I think in fact that can actually stay roughly where it was. I'll bring the black point down ever so slightly. And let's check the actual image. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. There's a good amount of contrast coming through now. So you can play with this as much as you want and tweak it to your preference, but I think this is looking decent. I might just make one tiny adjustment. I tend to check the black just to see the levels. So the bottom corner, I normally aim for something around the 0.06 or 0.07 for black. I don't want it to be completely like 0. It looks a bit too harsh. But I think somewhere in that region is kind of a nice place to be. So it takes a bit of messing around to get to that, but that looks decent enough to me. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Let's just redo it. Yeah, that looks okay. Bring the brightness up. Okay, cool. And then before I apply that, I'm actually going to have a look at the saturation as well. So this we can just bump up. Obviously you could go crazy and make it ridiculously rich in color, but it doesn't look great. I just want to do a subtle transformation just to bring out the colors a little, but still keeping it somewhat natural looking. So it's just finding that sweet spot, which I think from where we were to where we are, that's pretty good. I think that looks pretty nice. Do we want to do any more? Yeah. Maybe a very small adjustment. Yep. Okay. So that blue is really popping now, which is kind of nice. And that deep orangey red is coming through beautifully, I think. Okay, so that's the curves transformation done. And the detail is looking good, the colour is looking pretty nice. Overall, this image seems to be coming together, which is cool. Okay, so this is looking decent. So what we can do now is we can work on the stars. And we can do a curves transformation on these as well. So the main thing I want to play with here is the saturation, and just try and bring out some of the colors or the variation in colors of stars, like the bigger ones in particular are more noticeable. So you've got a lot of blues and oranges and reds and other colors that we really want to see. So we can look at the preview. We'll use some of the bigger stars just to see what's going on. Don't want to take it too far. Again, I think less is more. So we'll make a subtle transformation and just see. And we've got that nice orange star. And if we toggle back and forth, it is subtle, but I do think it makes a little bit of a difference and it's worth doing. And you can see it is changing ever so slightly. So that's it. In terms of the stars and the update to those, I don't want to mess with them too much. One thing I will do is extract the luminance layer though, and we'll use that in a second for star reduction. And again, that will just help bring out the nebula a little bit more. So before we do it, we need to recombine the stars with the nebula itself, and to do that we can use the PixelMath. And this formula that I use, I can't remember where I found it or where I saw it, but it works pretty well. Originally I was just doing stars plus nebula, but I think this is a better result. So we can just run that and it will replace it in line, and we have our recombined image again. And I think this is looking really good already, actually, honestly. Like, I'm pretty happy with the results. And we can just rename that so we know which one it is. So we call it main. Yeah, this is pretty nice. The colours there. We've got a decent amount of detail considering the amount of data that was collected. The stars are still pretty prominent. So one thing we can do is the easy star reduction. So again, part of the easy processing suite. So it's already selected the main image to apply it to, and this is what we need the luminance layer for. So I tend to run this on 10 cycles, and it seems to do a pretty decent job of just taking them down a little bit more, so they're not as prominent in the image, and the nebula can really pop. So again, a subtle transformation, but I think it's worthwhile, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with this resulting image. Yeah, you can see they're a little less in your face. So this is pretty much as far as I take it for the simple workflow. Obviously you could do a lot more, but that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.